Hello to all of our listeners, and welcome back to The Parent Solution, your one-stop shop for all things educational. Today is a guest episode, and I have a special guest with me, Michaell. Michaell, I'm super excited to have you here. Michaell is very into art and all things alternative. Michaell, did you want to tell our guests a little bit about yourself?
I was a sick child.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Vienna, in Austria. I was a sick child, and I kind of got myself to halfway function till I was 7, and then went to first grade school. And then I found I was neurodiverse. I have dyslexia and dysgraphia. So my hand-eye coordination is off, and I'm switching things. I'm also an advocate for neurodiversity. I couldn't function. I could not function in any systems because of my neurodiversity. This is now, with 60, is now my strength, because I have never fit into systems. And now I can see what systems, the disadvantages of systems in humanity, education, and art. So I went to 7th at school. I couldn't understand it, couldn't comprehend it. I wasn't a rebel. I actually wanted to belong, because, we all have a DNA drive to belong. That's why we have in school, that's what we practice, to belong socially, not just in the very small tribe, your family, or in a bigger tribe, or you get then out in the society tribe.
Yeah.
And I flunked schools. I was speaker of the class, but I failed the classes. So I was always human-centric, which I wasn't aware of, obviously. Yeah. So now I'm aware. I totally function with humans. I cannot function in systems. I have a hard time working my iPhone. I have a hard time filling out forms on the thing. Even though I wrote 5 books, and have a podcast that's only 30 seconds because of that. It's just a quote. I had the hardest time, and it's not that I was shamed or bullied. I mean, some girls laughed, in grade school, but I really cannot, because I was very popular. So I wasn't really. So when it came to high school, I wasn't like an outcast, or people say, "Oh, you are horrible," or whatever, and I wasn't bullied. But the self-shaming, what the system does, the teachers, and how they treat you, and they say, we get so little paid anyway. We don't want to use an extra energy to take care of you, especially 40 years ago. I think everything is different today, and I know it is. But 40 years ago, people, they didn't want to deal with it. They say, God, I get so little pay for a teacher. I cannot do for the ones that don't work. I work for the majority. And it's funny, on the other end, the geniuses are also shamed. So it's funny. I talked to a lot of geniuses, and I really went deep on the education stuff. And it's this genius so when you're middle of the road and you get A's, you're good. If you're not middle of the road, you just, go. It's just the things, okay, you go. But if you're either not functioning like me, or you're functioning to good, you're shamed in both ways, that there's something wrong with you. You're weird. And a lot of geniuses that I met felt the same way. They felt the same way as I. They couldn't pass it. They were like better than the math teacher themselves. They understood math better than the teacher. And for that, they got punished, So we are really middle of the road. Our target is middle of the road, and really castrating the human potential. And that's what I know now. I didn't know that then. I tried to survive. I tried to fit in, to do it. And art was always my savior. It made me feel human. It helped me belong. Also in the arts community, it's a concerted effort. It's not who is the star, who is the better, whatever, the biggest star, the most likes or whatever. It's even in a play, when you have two stars there, it's the play that counts.
Right.
Everybody needs to pull together. And you have to, even the two stars, if you have two stars in a play, they have to communicate with the rest of the team, with the prop, with the director, with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't just come and be superstars. So art always forces you to be inclusive and to create and to see actually what you can do in the inclusivity. And most artists find that's amazing,
Mm-hmm. And I think too, it's the idea of being able to express yourself in a way that is truly original to you, right? Like speaking with art and how you felt with art and how you feel with art currently and the things that you're doing in the art world. I think it's amazing because you're taking something that has been a passion of yours and an outlet almost of yours, and you're turning it into something that's beautiful and that is worthwhile of praise and of being part of that sort of team effort like you're talking about, right? Where it's always it's not just one person, it's not just one thing. It is a team effort, and it's always looked at for the beauty of the entire piece, not just a singular piece or the individual.
Yeah, this is a great thing that you mentioned that, Kimberly, that because it's basically art is the only language, universal language communication that we have. There's no other, it's everybody understands. If you make a little drawing, the person in Scandinavia understands it, Japan understands it, everywhere in the world understands it. And it's the only universal language. And that's why it always, you can't really, it's funny. It's the universal language. And we know that when I mention it and the people agree, nobody disagrees because, if you draw something, everybody can see that. Or if you make beautiful music or whatever. But we act as if that is not even important. I mean, how many languages do we have? But then art is like, we don't make that, that's not important. And I was asking me, because I knew this was an educational thing, I was asking myself, what is the core human purpose of education? Before we start fixing the education or talking about it, what is the human purpose of education? Have you ever, nobody asked that question. Nobody asked that question. And it's, in America and Canada, I think it's 100 years old. But in other countries, it's a lot older. And my question is, why do we have education? Now, is it to make people system relevant so they can navigate the systems? Meaning, I can work then in a religion, I can work then as a doctor or a lawyer, and that I understand that? Or are we educating people to be humans? Because, and then who has to do which I think it's a concerted effort, also inclusive. Parents in the micro system have to do some work, have to, and we don't even define it. I've never heard that. What are parents supposed to do now, not in a system context, but in a human context with their kids? What they should show, what should they show you in the first 6-7 years, which is the formative years, which means that is surviving. Obviously, that's why kids just copy patterns from their parents. And that's my thing. And then what are you doing as an educator? What is your purpose of education in priority? Obviously, you want to fit them that they are not lost in systems. They need to write and understand some math. but to fit in somewhere. And I'm a very good example. I have zero education. I can't even remember because of my neurodiversity. I can't even remember what I learned. What I got taught that is this actually helping me is typing. Typing was the one thing that actually is the most helpful thing I've learned. And that's a hands-on, that's an experiential thing. That's not a knowledge that I have to recall. And I have given, I think, 90 interviews in the last 5 months all over the world. And obviously I have interesting things to say without an education. So I'm completely self-taught. I'm also a certified coach, but that I just did that and I can't even use it, you know? So
I think it's really interesting. And I really love that you mentioned that. Because that is one of my passions is, and one of my questions is, are schools of today teaching students to be system relevant? That's the phrase you used, I believe, system relevant. And I really like that phrase because it is so true. And I've said many times, you know, that school makes good workers, right? And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that because you want to be able to conform to the system if that is what you choose to do. But for those of us who choose to step outside of the system, and do something a little more creative and do something on our own, and make our own system. You're right. School does not prepare you for that. The typical school does not prepare you for that. And it's not, the argument then I think is that school supposed to, because that's not really the job of school, right? The job of school, the reason that schools were invented, and it shocks me that people don't know this because it's common knowledge. But the reason that schools, particularly in the Western world, were invented was because the working day came into effect, the working week came into effect, and they wanted to be able to. It was in 1847 in Canada, anyways, when the public school system, as we know it, right, was invented or created, and the purpose for that was to create good workers. It was literally to create good workers, to customize children to being away from home for a certain period of time and to associating with people outside of their family for the majority of the day. Like when you think about how school works versus how a regular workplace 9-to-5 job works, they're very similar. And there's a reason for that, because that used to be how society was run, was on the backs of 9-to-5 workers. And it's not necessarily that way anymore, particularly with over the past couple of years. I think a lot of people have realized that is not a sustainable model. But that doesn't mean that the educational issues per se go away, right? We're still training children, like parents still send their children to school. We're still training children to be brought up in that sort of mindset and mind frame. And like I said, nothing inherently wrong with that. But you have to be able to give your child skills that are going to go beyond just being a good worker, because there's more to life, as I'm sure you know. There's more to life than just being a good worker, right? Life is more than just that.
I was under the opinion that that school or education gets you ready for life.
Supposed to.
I also thought, supposed to. And even 40 years ago, you know, my friends that were going into university, they believe that the university will show them what's right. And it's complete. You have to already make, so you're not getting unveiled enough to feel you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. And then you jump into another system, which is higher education. And then you have already made your decision. Humans don't work like that. I'm sorry. I mean, it just doesn't work like that. You cannot say, hey, you have a choice of five directions, 10 directions. You need to know what you do. We teach you, if you say you're a lawyer, we teach you to be a lawyer. We teach you to be a doctor. But you need to know if that's your passion. And then you have the highest suicide rate in dentists. You know, it's just, because the human being is so intricate.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just put him into labels, into limited system labels that we created.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost like creating a doll and asking the doll, what job should I do? And the doll will not answer you, but you can imagine it will. But it's, it doesn't function. So what I say, it's, not from, I experienced it on myself, and now I'm very happy that it didn't fit in, because I had to make my own I had to unveil myself to find myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what education is. It's basically you get born, you get programmed how to the basic functions of your parents. Then you go in grade school, and in grade school, we start, how humans function and starting to unveil. So give them a more refined, a social guidance
mm-hmm.
of what they have previously learned as in the family, but on a higher level. So not just in the family environment, but now on a social, on a societal environment. How you gonna deal with that? Not even saying now you're a doctor or anything, just to how to humanly deal, not to learn math, not to learn all that stuff. And just saying, okay, we throw a lot at you, and then something that sticks. That is a waste of human potential.
Mm-hmm.
That is an absolutely waste of human potential. It's about, because we are all, and there's more and more experts coming, and they all say, we're born with 97% of being unique in one way or another, better than anybody else on this planet. That's why we are unique. It's like nobody has the same DNA. We're unique, and we have skills and abilities that are unique as one of one, and we're the best of that one. And obviously you're not going to know that when you're born, because you're becoming a human, so you're not knowing that, but you have that in you. And not finding that is the biggest disappointment of humanity when you grow up. Because when you say, I have so many friends, I can't tell you, they hated being a lawyer. I mean, they had good jobs, they had good money. They hated it. They despised it. I just talked to another thing. His father was a diplomat, U.S. U.S. diplomat.
Mm-hmm.
And in the height of his career, when he was 45, he was driving with his dad. And, it was also a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Daddy, do you like what you do?" And he was like, always on openings, always on things, they drove all around the world. He says, "I loathe my job. I loathe it." So, this not knowing, that you're doing something that isn't your essence, that you are, that doesn't reflect what you are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what higher education should do. So then the regular grade schools should make you ready, that you understand what humanity is, how humans interact, how you can, navigate through the system of society. Mm-hmm. And then higher education should say, okay, now let's unveil you what you can do. Now you have a feeling of what you do. And I wouldn't even go right away when you go into university. I wouldn't go right away already separated. I would have like 2 years or 1 year where you can try things out. Because I say art shows you very much what's good. It taught me everything that I know. Mm-hmm. So I say, don't say you want to. I did, yeah. I got an electric guitar, and I said, "Oh my God, I want to be Hendrix. I want to play guitar, electric guitar, and whatever." And then I had a hard time, because in Europe they told you have to do classical guitar first before you even can do it. The system told you that, mm-hmm. That you have to play classical, and I couldn't understand it, couldn't comprehend it. And then a friend of mine, and I gave up on it after 2 years. I played 5 chords, and that was it. And then a friend of mine said, we were at a party, he says, oh, can you play the bongos or can you play the cowbell? And I was so good at it. They all applauded. And it was just a different medium. It was just, that's why I say don't buy any instruments for your kids. Like, don't buy a piano or anything. Just rent it and let him try or her try.
Mm-hmm.
And let her explore and find herself. It's this self-discovery is the key to a fulfilled life. And then don't tell kids in school that every day is supposed to be sunny. And if it's not, you can buy a car, you can buy a pill, you can buy a face job or whatever, and then it will be happy. Because if you do all that stuff, if you are unhappy, and it doesn't make you happy, guess what the system says? It must be your fault. There must be inherently something wrong with you, because a Ferrari makes everybody happy. A girlfriend makes everybody happy. A house and a good job makes everybody happy. But that's not reality.
You're right.
So I think those things need to be, and that's humane. That's learn about humanity, what it is to be human, not what it is to be human in a system. See, that's a fundamental mistake that we do, and we just took it over from the past. I mean, it's not our fault. There's nobody to blame. But I say we are in an awareness crisis, and we need to understand that it's about human interaction, human beings. And one tool for that is art that reflects that the strongest. I don't see another tool like art that can show you that. And, Montessori, and they're all kind of in that direction, because creativity is everything. Art is just the highest form of creativity because it has no purpose. It doesn't have a purpose. It's not the worst because it doesn't have a purpose. It's the highest. Because if I say, please castrate or neuter your creativity, your art, what comes in, and make it creative for a new iPhone or for a new Nike shoe or for whatever, to create a new restaurant, that's not the highest form. The highest form is where there's no direction. And it comes in, and it's an interaction with your unseen self. And when you create in that, and the product, the art, the music, the whatever, is the product of that conversation. And that's why it's so powerful. And this is my whole purpose, to expose the tool of creating art as a human superpower. And the second thing is then the second superpower is the dialogue, what we have now. Because it's not through a system. You are not the New York Times that has guidelines. And the third is the adaptability, which from living your life, right? You're adaptable. You think you can't do it, right? And then you can. And you learn how much adaptable you are, which I learned too, by the way.
Well, of course, I think that as humans, right, we should always want to be in like a growth mindset, and be able to be adaptable, and be capable. And if we're not capable, how can we help ourselves to make ourselves capable? And I guess then the question that you asked earlier becomes very relevant, of what are schools doing to facilitate this sort of learning, right? But like I said, I don't think that that's not what they were originally set up for, right? So I think that particularly over the past 2 years or so, a lot of people have realized that sort of system is broken and doesn't work as well anymore. I think that what you're proposing as an alternative sort of educational system, when you were talking about how you can, go to higher education and have it be a chance for you to explore your general interests, and a chance for you to actually get to do some inquiry-driven learning rather than going to school directly for this, that, or the other. And if somebody knows that that's what they want to be, or that's what they want to do, or they may think that's what they want to do, whatever, then fine, I say go for it. But for those people that don't know and that need a sort of push to be able to find that, what sort of system do we have in place for those people? And I would say that there's not very many systems. If you don't know what you want to do in life, or you don't know what
You're
you want to
screwed.
be,
You're screwed.
you don't
Yeah.
really have any options for higher sort of education that's going to allow you to explore those interests. Now therein, comes a whole conversation about like finances and money and like what are we spending our money on, et cetera, which I think is a whole other podcast. So I'll have to definitely
Yeah.
have you back
Yeah.
and chat about that. But in
Yeah.
terms of the actual system that isn't there and that's lacking, I think you're on point. I think you're on the money there, pun intended, I guess. You're on the money
Yeah.
there, because we don't
Yeah.
have anything for people that do not have like a set blueprint for their lives, right? Not everybody knows exactly what they want to be, and not everybody has the chance to explore before they're pushed into a job or a career or a business or whatever, because they don't really have an option, right? They can't, you got to pay the bills. What are you going to do? Right? You have to do something to earn money. And so therein lies, I think, the crux of the issue is that the system, the education system itself is so closely tied to the earning potential and the earning power of an individual that it's almost impossible to be able to freely explore without that sort of financial burden that you would have on yourself. And I mean, that's really unfortunate that it is that way. And I wish it wasn't, because it's very hard to, as a creative, or a chaotic creative, if you want to put it that way, it's very hard to conform yourself to a system and try to fit inside boxes when you really don't want to fit inside those boxes, because you just want to explore. Right? It's very difficult.
You can't fit in boxes. You are unlimited. And we said with our adaptability, you are unlimited. You can use your life force and adapt. I mean, there's people that, the senator, whatever. So if your muscle is adaptability, he was, the Arizona governor, he was 2 years in a tiger cage in the war. How can you survive that if the Viktor Frankl at the concentration camp? If you're not if your muscle isn't super in adaptability, you can't survive. So actually, they're given the most life force to a thing because they adapt. But that's the reason why all these friends of mine saying they hate their job. They hate their job, and that's why, look, according to whatever, I'm not know if it's true, but most dentists commit suicide. There's the highest.
That's
form
supposed
of
to be the statistic that I've heard. Yeah.
And I don't even know if that's true, because it's another system thing. But I'm just saying it is a fact. It is one of the figures that people, end their lives. And what you said before, I had something to say with that. What you were talking about something, and I said, and there was another point that I want to make that, the choice, the first choice and the second choice. So you have a first choice of that, and that ends up to be your hobby, right? And in some cases, that hobby, you become successful in that hobby. Always know your second choice. And see, just the consciousness, when you have somebody in education, family, society, everybody will say you should be a lawyer. But that is not your uniqueness. You are having abilities and uniqueness, and usually they reflect in your second choice. So you make that job to survive and make money to survive and feed your family. But then really you want to be a violin player. You want to be whatever. You want to be a fisherman, but fishermen don't make a lot of money. So you become a lawyer, and you're not in nature with the animals and the sea, which is your passion.
Yes.
And so know your second choice. Those things need to be kids need to be, you're exhausted. Those kids need to be aware of, conscious of. Then they will do automatically the right decision. See, but if you're not making them conscious of and saying, listen, you select a job because you, in our life, in our society, which is a system, you have to support yourself. But be aware of that. And then look for a job that hurts you the least to make enough for ends meet that you can actually do your second job, being an artist, being an explorer, being a scientist, being whatever. So don't think you shouldn't be a scientist of history or archaeology or whatever. You must be a lawyer instead. You can still. I don't mind if people do what they're doing now, but they're not conscious. They get pushed, and then they're not honest to themselves and say, yeah, I need to be a lawyer. I need to be a better lawyer. I need to make more money. I need to be a better doctor. I need to make more money. That is crazy. And this is the derailment. And I think education could conjure up so much power if they can communicate their purpose, or at least at that purpose, say humanity. Functioning humanity, make a new class. I don't care. You don't have to think, but that is the case. You have to get conscious instead of doing history that was written by the victor. Yeah, history is way better in art because if you want to know about art, you want to know about 1800s. You look at the paintings. You know more than what's written because that was written by the victor. It wasn't written by the people. You know.
There is that saying, yes. History is always written by the victor.
Yeah. So, and you teach that falsehood to your kids. I'm not saying it's wrong not to teach them. I'm just saying teach them both. Let them make a choice. Trust humanity. Trust that the kids can make their choice better than you can. I mean, kids are way smarter, which you know, than we are in a lot of ways. Like they're humanly more smarter. They're more in tune, and they get conditioned out of it. And I think that, but it's not the system wrong. On the other side of the systems are also mothers that need to support their babies. So it's basically humans against humans in the blinding of systems, religion, education, politics, countries, whatever, you know. So if we get the awareness that the absolute power is to experience in inclusion, then we can teach our people to be. I mean, people don't even have an idea. I work in a restaurant, or I worked a lot in a restaurant. But when I say people about humanity and say, you know, if you want to experience power, you don't need money. You don't need. If you want to experience the absolute power of human potential, you don't need money, you don't need fame, you don't need success. What you need is seeing that the power in humans is in the inclusion. We are herd animal. And art is one thing that always brings you into that state. And I say, if you get that, life is going to be beautiful. Because you are going to be in the moment. You're not going to judge. Oh, my God, you are a woman. Oh, my God. A system definition that has destroyed half of the population. Because it couldn't handle the system. The king couldn't handle. There's man and there's woman. Oh, my God. We have to separate. We have to make rules for each. We have to stereotypically make them. And you know that there's more masculine woman that man ever can be. And there's more feminine man that woman can ever be. So it's all fluid. We are fluid. And that's the misconception of humanity. We are fluid. We can be everything. That awareness needs to be taught in school. That what are we really outside of system? What are we really? And I feel the stuff that they put on you because it automatically means something else for me. I have to take care of you. I have to do this. I have to do that. And it's always from both systems, from both sides. We drag ourselves down. And when we can see that, and this is what education should do, we can be inclusive and really create our human potential, not keep systems alive. That's not our purpose with our life force. Our purpose is to be okay being us, working inclusively, and create a human potential. Not just navigating the one and the other one, maintaining and creating systems. That's life force that is wasted, And if we can do that, well, I mean, if we get just a consciousness, there's nothing to change. I'm not saying please change everything. Just be conscious. The change comes automatically. So I look at you as a human. I don't look at, obviously I see you a woman, obviously, and you see that I'm a man, but I'm looking at you. You're part of me. You are part of humanity. I don't see you as, oh, she's a woman. Oh, she's an artist woman. Oh, she's in Canada. She's a Canadian woman. I could never get a picture if I scan you through that.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost as though I do agree. I think that labels and labeling everything and every like person and putting people into little boxes really takes away from the togetherness of humanity, because that's like at the end of the day, we are all one human race, regardless of anything else that you want to put in there in terms of a category. We are all one part of the human race. And I think that a lot of people have forgotten that. Sometimes it's easy to forget because there's so many different categories and labels and divisions in humanity. And I know that we talked about this a little bit before with the idea of the potential that we as humans could have if we were all one united force, rather than fighting and squabbling and worrying about divisions amongst each other, which is difficult because by our very nature, humans always want to have the upper hand, right? They always want to be right, or they always want to have, they want to win the argument. They always want to conquer, right? And so it's difficult to be able to work together. I think it doesn't mean that it's not impossible, because I do think it's possible.
It's a condition. It's a system condition. If I want to be right, it's a, because right now I'm contradicting you, but I'm not saying I'm right. You see that? I mean, in this conversation right now, I'm contradicting you because I'm not saying, oh, you're wrong. Absolutely, you're right, because there is only higher truth. There is no right and wrong. Okay, so any argument of opinion that I have is system. Is if an opinion doesn't have humanity as context, it's waste. It's noise. It is nothing. If you want to experience life through systems, you want to be right. You want to know everything, but you can't know everything because we are fluid. And what is good for this guy is bad for that guy. It's just, when you hear people say, oh, I like this. I just listened in the morning about something where they tasted drinks. And they say, oh, I love this new drink. And the other person said, I hate it. And there's such a pleasure in that, because it shows our variety. It shows our limits. It shows our diversity. But see, diversity wasn't created by us, because when you look at animals, which you work with, they're not saying, oh, my God, that's a striped goat, or not. This is a white goat. No, this is a black goat. Or there's a gay goat, or whatever. They're goats.
They don't care.
They play and whatever. And that's why they can stay in the moment and don't need to go in a mind constructs of future and past. And those people that are so diverse is because the system divided us first in genders and then in races, because, oh my God, we have other people that look different because we conquered their land. And now we have people that look different. So how do we label them for the system? So when I talk to the guy in England, that I can tell him these are those people. And it's a completely, do you see how much wasted time and energy there is just in defining who is who. There are people. There are native people in Canada, in America. Okay? And that's all you need to say. Native humans. That's all you need to say. You don't need to give them, characterize them, stereotype them, and label them. But systems do that, and then they create another system, political correctness, that undoes those mistakes that they did before. We have to include humans, which is another. It's the worst thing, that including woman or including man or including a race is exactly the most racist thing that you can say, because it's not about their ability and their contribution that they could. It's just forcing them in another system and saying, let's say I don't get a job as I wanted to be a craftsman or a smith or something, and I don't get it. But through my race, I could get it. Then another smith that is 10 times better than me and loves it more, and I just get it because I get paid as a smith. I'm not even liking being a smith so much. And this is what I think is the problem. The system cannot handle humans. Humans have to handle humans and use the systems like they're supposed to do, which is basic. The first thing a system does, education as well, safety and security, an environment of safety and security to exchange humanness, to have a free speech, to have to do what you do, and that you can contribute. I mean, why do you create a tribe? So the woman can go and doesn't have to sit with the baby all the time. She can walk in and pick berries in the woods. It's helping each other out, and in that ritual of helping each other out, we practice inclusiveness, and we see through another. Your husband might be better with the baby than you are, and we say, "What are you doing?" He never cries with you, and he says, "I'm doing this and this." I sing to him, or I shake him a certain way, and then you learn, and the education, and that's education, experiential wisdom that you have learned through your being. Now we talk in power. Now we're not talking knowledge that is good for 10 years and then it's outdated. And that's what I want to, the awareness, not to change the educational system, and that happens automatically. But if you get the awareness out first, if we all see each other as human first, then it's of course we see it's other race on whatever. We are not blind. Our reptilian brain picks that up because it always checks our security. But we are all humans, and I wouldn't have had this conversation with you if it wasn't for you. And you just gave me a canvas. Just gave me space. I'm trying to live as an example what I preach.
Right. Like,
and also let people, I practice what I preach, and I explain, and I let people and explain what I do. So I'm doing it and then explaining it. See, look at this. We're doing this right now.
Yes. It's been, it definitely is something that I think is important, especially for kids. And that's something that I really try to incorporate into my life, as you said, practice what you preach, into my life, but into my business as well. Is there should not be expectations on you to perform in a certain way. My only expectation of you is that you do your best, because if you do your best, you'll be happy, and you'll not just be happy, but you'll be able to have the ability to differentiate between what makes you happy later in life versus what makes you miserable. And what we really isn't, I think as parents, what we really want for our children is for them to be fulfilled and content and purposeful human beings and happy human beings. They don't get to be that way if they don't have the ability to decide what makes them happy versus what makes them miserable, right? Because they won't know any better. So giving them the chance.
Experience.
and giving them the
The
chance
experience.
and giving them the experiences to be able to have them decide what is the best for them and what makes them happy. And that looks different for everybody, right? But I think that that's
Yeah.
a much smarter way of going about it than forcing certain knowledge at certain ages, right? Children will learn when they're
Yeah.
ready to learn, and
Exactly.
they will want to learn those things because they will be curious, because children are naturally curious, right? And I think that the school system, the public school system, does a very good job, like unintentionally, but intentionally, it does a very good job of stripping that away from kids, right? Why is it that a student goes into, kindergarten and they're curious and asking questions like, why is the sky blue? And they come out in grade 12 and all of a sudden they're not curious about anything. They don't want to learn anything. They're just going to throw their hands up and go to work, right? Or what have you. And, part of that is because as we get older, we learn things and we don't really need to ask those questions anymore, right? We recognize that the sky is blue because of XYZ, right? Or whatever scientific fact, or like whatever it is, right? There are certain questions that we don't have to ask because we know the answers already, and they're kind of accepted as fact. That's kind of a whole other podcast in terms of what's fact and what's not fact, but we know the answers because they're accepted as fact. Whereas with but I think another reason that we stop asking questions when we get to a certain age is just because curiosity has literally been stripped out of us as humans,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking from experience, I can say that I have met many children who I've watched over the years. I'll see them when they're, 7 or 8 years old, and then I'll see them again when they're like 15, 16. And it's like looking at a completely different person. Of course, people change and people grow up, and like you can't really help
Yeah.
growing up,
Yeah.
right? But that lack of curiosity is something that has always been a driving factor in my business, because I want to be able to keep that alive with students. And that's what me and my team stand for, is making sure that we do our very best to keep that curiosity alive, to keep that inquiry driven process of learning in children
Yeah.
alive as long as possible. Because if they can make it to 18 and they still want to learn things, they're set for life, right? And if everybody was able to do that, we'd be set for life.
Yeah. There's a trick to that. Number one, this experiential digestion. So when you're a little baby, you play with your toes for an hour. And then you're done with them because you have explored playing with your toes. And then, so the curiosity, I think, never must go away automatically if the kid is in time space. If you pull the kid out and say, you must do so that you can do, you should have, you must, or you're supposed to. Supposed to is one of the biggest shame words that you can use. You're supposed to be, you're a man, you're supposed to do this. You're a woman, you're supposed to do this. You are a doctor, you're supposed to do this. It's the biggest shame word because it always says you need to align with the system. I'm not interested in this. I mean, no human is interested in this. And when you can experience something for the first time in the moment, like right now with you, so I'm curious because I haven't had the interview with you. So this is our first interview. It is, and I'm not thinking about, oh my God, I need to pay those bills. I need to do this. That keeps the curiosity alive, being in the moment. The moment you jump into a time construct, oh, you were so happy when you're little. Oh, but in the future, you're going to be a race car driver or whatever. You never enjoy the moment. And therefore, you're just thinking, or, like so many kids, they're absent-minded. And you know that from ADHD and all this stuff, they're absent-minded because that reality is more happy than the system reality. And what I found is the people that say, oh, we need to go in the metaverse, the kids are not interested in anything because we're living already in the metaverse called systems. That's an artificial human creation, and we experience humanity through that creation. We not experience nature, like you said. you told me, which a lot of people told me, that kids believe that cheese comes from the supermarket. That is exactly, we're living in a metaverse.
Mm-hmm.
Because no kids 100 years ago would have said, I get it from the grocery store. No kid would say that cheese comes from the grocery store. But so we are living in a metaverse. And to make people conscious, I'm not saying stop with the systems, but make them sure, hey, we are already in a metaverse. This is not humanity. Humanity is more valuable. And being in the moment and enjoying the moment will make the future happy. You can't get something when you don't experience to have it first. If you cannot be happy without money, you can never be happy with money.
With it. I love that. Yeah, it's so true.
There is no, if you, the same as with thing, you can't, if you're not happy not being a doctor, you cannot be happy being a doctor. It's just something you do. It's something, I mean, look at all the people that die. What do they say on their deathbed? Oh, I should have get another $1 million. I should have taken over that system or that system. So this and that. No, it's not. It's just you have to be in this moment. That's the most important thing, to keep kids relevant and focus on, and I feel depressed right now, or I feel not good right now. Feel it in a moment and it goes away right away. If you push it, suppress it, and say, but I'm not supposed to, and here comes that deadly word, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that,
mm-hmm.
then you will carry that depression, that fear, that anxiety in the future. And you always are in a mind, you think, oh, I'm going to do this to be happy. No doing is going to make you happy. Yeah, we are beings, human beings, not human doings. And no doing can make you happy. Whatever you want. No doing can make you happy.
We are human beings, not human doings.
Beings, and you forget,
we are human beings, not human doings. That's exactly. So profound. It's very simple, but it's so profound. It's true.
Yeah. Most wisdom is very simple, and art is one tool where you can experience that being. You learn from an imagination how to you hear a tone, you say, oh my God, this would be another tone. Oh my God, I could make a song out of this. You see a word, you see bumblebee. And then you say, oh my God, flowers, daisies, I can. And so your imagination creates right now in this moment a mind construct, and you have something brought in from the non-physical into the physical, which you always go at night. You're always gone in the night. So when people have a fear of dying, I say you die every night. You're going into the non-physical, and in the morning you'll come back. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Absolutely. 100%. Thank you so much, Michaell, for being here. Thank you for all of your wisdom. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate your time that you took out of your day for sharing everything with me and with our listeners. So thank you. Maybe I'll have to have you back on a future episode.
Definitely. I love it.
If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to reach out. You can always find me on social media. It's Star Students on Facebook and LinkedIn, or starstudents.learning on Instagram. You can also reach out through email, which is all over social media channels. Thank you, as always, so much for listening, and I'll be back next week.